Hey guys, so in this video, I just wanted to quickly ship a video about all the various updates that are coming into Total CMS Beta 7, okay? I'm not going to dive into some of all the code. There are some new macros. Check those out in the release notes. But here we're just going to look at some of the new stuff available in the dashboard. So first, you'll notice that the homepage is kind of redone. It has a little bit more content now. We have the video for Beta 6. This particular video will actually be also on this page when I ship this, okay? And you'll notice that a lot of the pages now have a little bit more content, just to give us a little bit more, stuff. Some of the icons have been updated as well. And now in the utilities, actually, some of these utilities actually work. So first off, we have the project setup. And what this is useful for is, let's say if you're launching a new project, and if you do have a new project, this collections view will actually be empty by default. And so what this project setup will do is when you click on default setup, you can click on that. And what it will do is it will actually create all of the default collections for you automatically. It doesn't create any objects in there, but at least creates all of the collections for you. So that's a nice little automation. Next is we have the cache cleaner. This is if in production, after you publish and everything is online, some of the content, some of the twig, the content that's generated by Total CMS does get cached for performance. So if you ever see that you're not seeing the data that you would think, it's probably going to be in some rare cases, especially because if you publish, do a republish all, the cache will always be cleared when you do a republish all. But this button allows you to just click on that, and it will quickly clear all of the server cache for Total CMS. Next is if we skip all the way down to server checker. This is a nice little info about your server. Has some things about the operating system and some of your configuration about your web server. It does some checks to make sure that permissions and the required software are installed, some optional software, and then some configuration values within Total CMS. So this is a great little information. And if any of these have errors, you might have some issues with parts of the CMS, and it will actually display the error here as well. Next up is the log analyzer. And this is a really cool utility for analyzing your CMS logs. Okay, so here we'll notice that you'll have a list of all your logs. You can click on that and it will show you all of the errors. So this particular error in this log has happened 6 times. And then this is the actual raw log file. And yeah, you might have more depending on, it creates a log per day. It does store up to 30 log files before it starts deleting those. So yeah, and every time you just click on the log, it automatically shows up here, and all this data will get refreshed so you can see exactly what's going on in the CMS. Next thing is if we go into the collections view, you can actually add a new collection now. There was broken in Beta 6. Beta 6 had the ability to create custom collections and custom schemas, but I broke the new collection form. So yeah, that kind of killed the glory on that feature update, but now it's available. So we can now add new collections as well as new schemas, right? So you can go ahead and add your own custom schemas as well as your own custom collections. Excellent. If you go into a collection now, you'll notice that there is a new utility called Rebuild Index. And what this does is if you click on it, what it does is it will actually completely delete the existing index for a blog and create a completely fresh one. Why would you want to do this? Well, if you are adding new fields to a collection or a schema, or you are maybe editing it so that a new field is a part of the index, or you remove fields from the index, this feature just gives us the ability to manually regenerate that without having to actually go in and modify any objects or anything like that. So it's just a quick little utility to rebuild this index. Lastly, inside of the schemas, this is kind of a nicety. If we go into a custom schema here, and if you know, for each field, we can define something called a factory. And before, we had to actually kind of know what to type in here, right? It is documented, But now I have this nice little, tooltip that gives us a little bit of help. So if I want to do like, image, I can see all the various options for images, right? And then I can go here and then I can modify the parameters in here, right? So really cool little utility here that's been added to the factory. And again, this is for when you're creating or editing your schemas. It just makes it a lot nicer to kind of have an idea of what you can do here versus having to always look at the documentation. Now, while we're in this interface, I want to talk about a breaking change that occurred. If we look at the new out-of-the-box schema for blog, it has been modified. You'll notice that there are several fields that have been removed: extra content 2, archive, and labels. Another thing that has happened is the gallery has been removed from the index. Okay. Now, the reason for this is that those fields came from Total CMS 1, and I just felt like they were too much. I added them because we wanted to abuse blog in Total CMS 1. But now that we have the ability to have custom collections, we need to pare the blog schema down a little bit. Now, I don't want to break backwards compatibility, so we do have the ability to actually change this. Okay. Now, you can't change it. There is a new schema called Blog Legacy that you cannot see here, but it does exist. And let's see if we go to my blog collection here. Okay. One thing you'll notice is the gallery field does not exist here. Also, I think archived doesn't exist, right? And those are a part of the index in the old version. And if I go ahead and edit this blog collection, you'll see that it is set to the schema of blog. Now, if you have an existing blog and you're utilizing those fields, here's the fix. Okay, so you're going to edit the collection like I've done here. And what you're going to do is you're going to delete this collection. Don't be scared. This isn't going to delete all of your data. It's just going to delete the collection metadata. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, we're going to delete this. So my blog collection is gone. Right? But don't worry. What we can do now is we're going to click New Collection. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to give it blog. Make sure that the ID is the same exact ID that it was before. Then in the select schema, what we're going to do is we're going to select blog legacy. And then type in your description. Hopefully you also make sure you save the URL that you had in there before. And in this particular project, I didn't actually have a URL set. But if you have one, make sure you copy so you can paste that in here. And then let's click save. Excellent. We have our blog collection again, and it is set to the legacy schema. Now let's go back into that blog. What you notice is we now have access to the gallery and all of the older fields that were removed previously. Okay, so here we are in Stacks, and this beta 7 has 2 huge updates for the Stacks ecosystem. And the first one is, by popular demand, a feature that I know a lot of you have been waiting for is actually filtering and sorting inside of a loop. Okay, so for example here, I have an example in here. You'll notice that I've modified the demo project to contain some more fields. So we have a start if something is featured. I also added tags into here. Okay. And if you notice, these actually are sorted by featured and date. Okay. And there's also some filtering going on as well. Now, when you open up your existing Stacks projects, you will notice an issue with the loop stacks. By default, the filter and the sort will be turned off, and you will not see your content here. Okay. So what you need to do is you will need to turn on the filter stack. And instead of this loop filter being here, you'll actually see your old content. What you're going to do is you're going to take that old content and drag it into the drop zone that's down here. Now, I should have recorded this before this happened, okay? But yeah, essentially you're going to see your block grid content or whatever you have up in here. You're just going to take that and drag it into the drop zone area that's down here. Okay. And at that point, if you want to add new filters, you just go ahead and click on the plus button and you can add as many filters as you want. Okay. Now let's review these new filter and sorting settings. So inside blog or the loop blog, let's turn on both filter and sorting. And as you saw, you can add as many of these as you like. Okay. And let's have a look. Now, this is very similar to the feeds, sorting, and filtering. It takes it to another level a little bit, though. So for each filter, you can have, as many filters as you want. And let's say here I have property tags. And then we have contains. We have all kinds of stuff in here, okay, that we can then do logic on, right? So, for example, let's say I wanted to do featured. Okay, and I'm going to do featured is true. Okay, and let's turn off that. So if I do featured is true, and let's preview this page, what it will do is it's only going to show us the featured posts. It's all the posts with the star, by the way. I added a star in here. So that's a nice little thing where we can do a static filter. Okay, now before I added this one, let's look at what I had in there before. And what this does is this gives us another option. If you notice, we have filter by URL turned on, and you also give it a filter by URL key. So what this allows us to do, it allows us to filter based on a URL. Now, if I were to have something in the value, that would be a default filter without anything passed to the URL. If you leave the value blank, this means that only filtering via the URL is supported for this filter. So by default, it's not going to have any filters. It'll display everything. But then it allows me to add a tag key to the URL so that I can then filter. Let's have a look at that. So here we are. Let's look at, we can do something called, here, let's do this one. Okay, so I'm going to copy that tag. And basically what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do $tag equals, and I use tag because that's the what I set inside the URL key. You can put it whatever you like in there. And I'm just going to paste that in. Now, if I hit enter, what this does is that it's now filtered. There's only one stack that has that, right? But actually, let's change it up a little bit. Let's go ahead and do anything that has ET. Okay, now, if you look, you'll notice that this tag has ET, this has ET, but this one also has ET, but it's at the end, right? So if we were to look at the stacks again, what you'll see is that the condition here is contains. So because this tag contains ET, then it is displayed. So if we wanted it to be an exact match, we could then say condition is equal to. Now let's preview this. Let's refresh this now. And now, if we look, I still have the tag equals ET, but this time, because I changed my logic to be equal to instead of just contains, it only shows me the posts that exactly have the ET tag. Now, other things here, we have an invert filter logic so that whatever logic you build here, you can actually invert that logic just by checking this box. So essentially, this particular logic would now say any tag that is not equal to whatever I pass via the URL, right? So it's an inversion of this logic. And we have use variables similar to what we have in a lot of the other stacks within Total CMS. If you use variables here, essentially the tag or the property or the value field, whatever you type in here will be actually referencing a variable instead of the static text. Okay, kind of an advanced feature, but definitely very powerful if it's something you need. Where this could be powerful is, let's say that we're on a blog post page. We wanted to create a filter that showed, or a loop that showed related blog posts, right? And so what you could do that is we can say let's say we have, I want to filter by author, right? And I want to show anything that is, if I go value, then I can do, let's pretend I'm on a post page. This is not, but I could just do post dot author here, right? And then what this is going to do, it's going to filter everything here because post.author is referencing the blog post that's on the page. I set the value to reference a variable. So we are going to filter everything in this list for authors that are equal to the author of the blog post we're on. Pretty cool. Very powerful stuff here. Okay, let's look at the sort. And sort is pretty simple, right? We have the ability, you can define what field you want to sort by. You can then set it to reverse sort, natural sort. Natural sort is useful if you have numbers, traditionally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you don't use natural sort, you'll notice that the sort order is going to be 1, 10, 11, 12, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So numbers aren't sorted as you would imagine them to by default. So we have a natural sort. Now, if you don't need that particular feature, don't turn on natural sort. It is, minutely more resource intensive. It's probably nothing noticeable, but it is. Okay, so it's not quite as fast as default sort. So if you really don't need that feature, don't turn that on. And then obviously we have shuffle. Now you'll notice if you turn on shuffle, it removes all the settings because we don't need to sort by anything. It just shuffles the properties. Okay. And similarly to the other ones, you can actually use a variable here as well. So you can just turn on this, and then whatever you put in here in the property field will be a variable. As you see in this example, I have multiple sorts. So first we're sorting by date, then we are sorting by featured. Now in this example, here you'll notice that I'm featured, and then I have it set to reverse. Because by default, featured actually, when you sort by featured, it puts it at the bottom. So we want to reverse that so that featured goes towards the top. And that's just the way that how the sorting function works with the data stored as featured. Also check out the rest of this this loop post here. You'll notice that I added some things like this conditional so that if it's featured, we add a little SVG star. And then down here, I add another little loop where I loop through all the tags and I add in a little label, right? So kind of an interesting implementation here. Oh, another thing that we added to loops is when nothing is found. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look at this and let's filter by tag equals Joe. And what we'll notice is since no blog posts have tag equal Joe, we then get displayed the no blog posts were found message. Now, that message, you can add in whatever stacks you want in there. I just have a simple header to keep it simple, but yeah, you can add whatever you want. And then that content will only be displayed when the filtering or sorting of the loop actually returns 0 results. Lastly, we have the ability to limit. Okay, so if I want to limit by a certain number, we can do that, right? So I want to limit it by 3, and you can also do pages. Okay, and what that says is because let's say I have 100 blog posts and I want to limit it by 10. Okay, the initial page is going to be show 1 through 10. And if I do page 2, that's going to show numbers 11 through 20, so on and so forth. And what's cool is you can actually pass that data via the URL as well. Let's show you an example. So we're going to set this back to the default of limit by 3 and page 1. Let's preview that in the browser. Okay, so here we have that inside the browser, and you'll notice as we set it configured, we only display 3 posts, right? And if I go ahead and add, remember we added the page URL key to be a P, so I'm going to do P equals, and I'm going to put the number 2 here. So this is going to give me page 2. And what you'll notice is that actually loads 3 more posts, and this is technically post numbers 4, 5, and 6, right? So if we were to divvy up all of our posts into pages where there's 3 per page, again, this is page number 2. So this gives us the beginnings of a pagination. Obviously, we're going to build upon this in the future, but here's a start where we can actually kind of manually create some pagination on our pages. Now, if you don't want the pagination feature at all, you just simply need to turn that off, and then all this will do is limit, right? So this is going to limit, to display only a certain number of posts. Okay, the last feature that I want to show off inside Stacks is a game changer. Now in beta 6, if you attended that hangout or watched the 3-hour-long video, I recommend doing that. Totally worth it. You're going to learn a lot. Okay, but if we go ahead and let's go into preview. If you remember before, you can now add the dashboard to a menu super easy. It's just a macro. Check out the release notes for that. And we're going to go to the embedded dashboard here. Okay. Oops. We're going to go to actually the dashboard link. Okay. And if you remember what I said before is the dashboard doesn't work well in preview. Well, that's no longer the case now. So you can actually go ahead and you have full functionality with the dashboard all inside of Stacks. Super cool. Everything works. So all the docs work, all the collections, you can add a new collection. So you can really manage your data here. Okay. So this is important because inside of preview, it's like its own standalone instance of Total CMS. It doesn't reflect what's on the server. So you can go ahead and let's click on blog. Well, notice that I do have blog posts, right? These particular ones were created with the factory, right? So if I go ahead and click on that and go into, well, what happened to edit mode here? Oh, oops, I shouldn't have done that. Let's go back to the link. We'll go into collections, go into my blog. Interesting, preview kind of was a little funky there. It does work. Let's go in the browser. So if you probably open it in the browser, go on the link. Works a little bit better in the browser. I admit I didn't really play with it much in preview directly, but if you preview in the browser, you can see that it's definitely running inside preview. And now we can actually go ahead and play around with things. So we can go to blog. I can go to the factory. I can generate objects, or maybe go into the feed. I have no objects in the feed, right? So let's go into the factory. And let's generate a few objects. 3 is not much. Let's go ahead and create another 3. Okay, and if we go back to our feed, we'll see that, boom, I now have created 6 objects, which is cool. And if I go back into preview and go to my feeds page and preview this, okay, we'll notice that in my feeds page, I actually have data now. Prior it was empty, and that's because I was able to go into the dashboard in preview and generate these objects with dummy data that I can then muck with my layouts and play around with things so that we can actually build and design things with actual data, which is nice. And having all the data local inside of Stacks makes preview super fast. So that's why this is such a game changer. Well, everybody, that is everything we have for Beta 7. I hope you enjoy it. I can't wait to see your feedback and what you're building with Total CMS 3.